It was the 1960s, the era of space races, social revolutions, and suburban dreams. Yet, in a quiet TV neighborhood, a witch named Samantha Stephens was brewing something entirely different. Bewitched wasn't just a sitcom about a magical housewife. It was a spellbinding mix of charm, chaos, and cultural rebellion. Behind its twinkling nose, wiggles, and laugh tracks, the show carried secrets far darker and stranger than anyone watching could imagine. From cursed sets and tragic fates to quiet scandals and uncanny coincidences, Bewitched turned reality itself into something almost supernatural. So, sit back as we uncover 20 weird facts about Bewitched you probably never knew. Let's start with one that's truly haunting: the Bewitched curse, Agnes Moorehead, and the nuclear fallout. Before she became Endora, the fiery, sarcastic witch mother who terrified Darrin, Agnes Moorehead starred in a movie that seemed cursed from the moment the cameras rolled. In 1956, she appeared in The Conqueror, a film shot in the Utah desert, dangerously close to a U.S. nuclear testing site. Within years, dozens of cast and crew from that production, including John Wayne and Susan Hayward, were diagnosed with cancer. Moorehead herself would die of uterine cancer in 1974. Many believe that radioactive fallout from the nearby Nevada test site contaminated the filming area. For Moorehead, a devoutly religious woman who often refused to rehearse occult dialogue from Bewitched, this connection became eerie. Some reports claim she later referred to the film as a curse that never left the desert. What makes this fact unsettling is its contrast. While Moorehead's Bewitched character lived eternally powerful and flamboyant, the actress faced one of Hollywood's quietest environmental tragedies. Even after her death, fans of Bewitched whispered about the Endora curse, linking her iconic role to the real-world radiation legacy that haunted her final years. Behind the show's pastel sets and laugh cues, one of its brightest stars carried a very dark shadow from her past. One born not of witchcraft, but of human recklessness. The pain behind the smile. Dick York's career-ending injury. When audiences tuned into Bewitched, Dick York, the original Darrin Stephens, played the stressed husband trying to survive a marriage filled with literal magic. But behind that easy charm was a man fighting a secret war against agony. Years before Bewitched, York starred in They Came to Cordura, it's 1959, where a scene required him to lift a railroad handcar. In one disastrous take, a co-star lost grip, and the full weight fell on York's back. The injury tore muscles and left him with chronic spinal pain for life. By the mid-1960s, the grueling studio hours became unbearable. He relied heavily on painkillers, occasionally collapsing on set. Producers tried to accommodate him, adjusting camera angles and shortening scenes, but his condition worsened. In 1969, he suffered a severe seizure during filming and never returned. There was no farewell episode, no in-story goodbye. Darrin simply vanished and reappeared, portrayed by another actor. Off-screen, York's life spiraled. He struggled financially, yet dedicated his later years to charity work, helping the homeless through a hotline he founded. His story turned from a sitcom fairy tale to a real-life parable of pain and resilience. The show's lighthearted world hid an immense human cost. Every time York smiled on screen, it masked a man breaking under invisible weight. The Darrin switch, Hollywood's boldest TV swap. One day in 1969, audiences noticed something strange. Darrin Stephens, Samantha's mortal husband, suddenly looked different. His voice changed, his expressions were sharper, but no one on the show seemed to notice. That's because Bewitched pulled off one of television's boldest moves, a total actor swap, with zero explanation. After Dick York's departure, producers cast Dick Sargent as the new Darrin. The script didn't address it. No magic spell gone wrong, no cosmic mix-up. Just business as usual, Samantha and her husband, played by a completely new man. Fans were baffled. Newspapers questioned the choice. Yet the show carried on as if nothing had happened. The phenomenon even earned a nickname, the Darrin Syndrome. It became shorthand for abrupt casting changes in long-running shows. Behind the scenes, Sargent faced his own pressures. Stepping into a beloved role was daunting, and chemistry between the leads took time to rebuild. Though the show continued successfully, the shift symbolized something deeper: how network television of the 1960s often underestimated audience attachment to continuity. Today, Two Darrins remains one of TV history's strangest continuity breaks. For Bewitched, it was both a creative gamble and a practical necessity, a real-life bit of television magic that somehow, against all logic, worked. The death of Gladys Kravitz, tragedy behind the laughter. In Bewitched, Gladys Kravitz was the nosy neighbor, forever spying through her curtains, convinced something bizarre was happening next door. Her frantic shrieks and double takes became fan favorites. But few viewers knew that the woman behind those laughs, Alice Pierce, was dying while filming. Pierce had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer before joining the show in 1964. Determined to keep working, she told almost no one. Her humor, exaggerated expressions, and physical comedy masked the toll of chemotherapy and exhaustion. As the show's first 2 seasons aired, her health quietly deteriorated. She died in March 1966, only months after filming her final scenes. Producers decided to keep her death private at first, replacing her with actress Sandra Gould, who played the same character with a different energy, sharper, more overtly comic. But for many viewers, something felt missing. Behind the recast, there was grief, the loss of an actress whose comedic timing defined the neighborhood dynamic. In a poetic twist, Pierce's performance earned her a posthumous Emmy Award in 1966 for Outstanding Supporting Actress. It was both a tribute and a heartbreak. Television's funniest busybody had kept her secret until the very end. Even amid laughter, Bewitched was surrounded by unseen suffering, a reminder that even magical worlds are lit by very human shadows. Samantha's nose twitch, icon or illusion? It's the single most recognizable gesture in sitcom history, Samantha Stephens twitching her nose to cast a spell. The move became Bewitched's global trademark, copied by children, parodied in commercials, and even referenced in The Simpsons. But here's the twist. Elizabeth Montgomery never actually twitched her nose. In reality, the movement was a clever trick. Montgomery wriggled her upper lip, and editors sped up the footage slightly, creating the illusion of a nose twitch. Rumors even spread that she had a hidden wire under her nose. False, but persistent. Others suggested she had a natural tic that inspired the gesture. Montgomery herself found the obsession amusing. In one interview, she laughed. It wasn't witchcraft, it was muscles. Yet that simple gesture, a last-minute idea during early rehearsals, became pop culture magic. Beyond the myth, it carried symbolism. In an age where female characters often relied on male help, Samantha's little twitch gave her quiet control. She could bend reality with a smile. It turned domestic life into empowerment, disguised as comedy. Every era of television has its icons, but few gestures have transcended time like that invisible spell. A movement born from improvisation became a language of its own. Low-budget magic, when Bewitched's cast wore their own clothes. For a show built on glittering spells and supernatural flair, Bewitched was surprisingly modest behind the scenes. Viewers saw sparkling wardrobes, lavish suburban sets, and high-class mid-century charm. But in reality, the show ran on a tight budget, so tight that many of its actors were asked to bring their own clothes to set. During the early seasons, Screen Gems, the production company, cut corners wherever possible. Sets were reused from other sitcoms, and costume budgets were slim. Elizabeth Montgomery's stylish outfits, many came straight from her personal closet. Guest actors were quietly told to dress nice, because there often wasn't a wardrobe allowance for them. Even Samantha's day-to-day dresses weren't designer pieces created for the show. They were Montgomery's own well-chosen purchases, recycled cleverly by the costume department. The irony is striking. While Samantha could conjure furniture or gowns with a twitch of her nose, the show's wardrobe department struggled to afford fabric. This restraint became part of Bewitched's aesthetic charm. Clean, practical, believable suburban realism mixed with fantasy. It wasn't Hollywood opulence. It was creativity under constraint. Production memos from the time reveal constant cost-cutting. Special effects like levitation or disappearing acts were done with fishing wire, stop motion, and camera edits instead of expensive rigs. The illusion of magic came from imagination, not money. That's the paradox that defined Bewitched, a show about limitless power, filmed under strict limits. And somehow, those limitations helped it look timeless, a mirror of ordinary life touched lightly by enchantment. Aunt Clara and the 1,000 Doorknobs. Among all of Bewitched's eccentric characters, few were more beloved than Aunt Clara, the bumbling witch who misfired spells and adored doorknobs. But here's the wonderfully weird part. The obsession was real. Actress Marion Lorne, who played Aunt Clara, was a real-life collector of antique doorknobs. Long before she joined the show, she had spent decades scouring flea markets and antique stores across the US and Europe. By the time Bewitched began filming, her personal collection reportedly numbered over 1,000 unique knobs. Brass, crystal, porcelain, even hand-carved Victorian pieces. When the writers discovered her quirky hobby, they decided to weave it into Aunt Clara's character. Many of the doorknobs seen on screen actually came from Lorne's own home. It wasn't just a prop choice, it was a glimpse into the actress's life and personality. Off-screen, Lorne's gentle confusion mirrored her character's charm. Castmates adored her. She brought warmth to every rehearsal and humor to every mistake. Sadly, Marion Lorne died in 1968, 2 years after winning a posthumous Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress. Her final episode aired shortly after her death, ending Aunt Clara's appearances without recast, a rare mark of respect in television then. That the writers immortalized her personal quirk in the show feels almost poetic. A private fascination turned into a sitcom symbol. Aunt Clara's magical world of miscast spells and doorknobs remains one of television's sweetest tributes. A reminder that sometimes the strangest details come from real life, not the script. Holy names, pagan roots, the biblical symbolism behind Endora. At first glance, Bewitched seemed like harmless suburban comedy, but woven into its spellbook of character names and lore were ancient references drawn from scripture and myth. The show's writers cleverly borrowed from the Witch of Endor, a biblical figure from 1 Samuel 28, who summons the prophet Samuel's spirit for King Saul. That single name inspired Samantha's mother, Endora, regal, mysterious, and morally ambiguous, much like her biblical counterpart. The name Samantha also carries semi-biblical weight, derived from Aramaic roots meaning listener or told by God. Together, the two names formed a symbolic pair, the faithful listener and the conjurer of spirits, a subtle duality hiding in plain sight. Network censors in the 1960s were highly sensitive to religious themes, especially anything that hinted at witchcraft. To slip through, the writers masked these origins with humor and fashion. The show never mentioned the Bible directly, yet its spiritual subtext remained, a constant tension between good and mischievous, faith and independence. This dual imagery deepened the show's cultural resonance. While families laughed at Darrin's exasperation, the names whispered older meanings: woman is power, woman is knowledge, woman is otherworldly. In a conservative era, those undertones made Bewitched quietly revolutionary. What seemed like a lighthearted sitcom about housewives and broomsticks was, in essence, a modern retelling of ancient archetypes, holy, heretical, and hilariously suburban all at once. Tabitha, the baby who kept changing faces. If you binge-watch Bewitched today, you might feel déjà vu whenever baby Tabitha appears. That's because the Stephens' magical daughter was played by not one, but 5 different babies and child actors during the series. When Tabitha first appeared in Season 2, multiple infants were used interchangeably for filming convenience, common in Hollywood to comply with child labor laws. But as the character grew, continuity became a spell of its own. The most recognized actress, Erin Murphy, began playing Tabitha around age 2 and continued for over 100 episodes. Though in early seasons, she shared the role with her twin sister, Diane Murphy, to meet filming schedules. Later, as the show's timeline shifted, Tabitha's age and abilities fluctuated wildly. One episode featured her as a toddler levitating toys. Another suddenly portrayed her as an articulate schoolgirl. No explanation, just another day in the Stephens household. Behind the scenes, the Murphys became minor celebrities. Fans sent letters addressed to baby Tabitha, and toy lines soon followed. But constant filming took its toll, and as production continued, the twins were gradually phased out, one continuing on screen, the other moving into a normal childhood away from cameras. This revolving door of Tabitha's gave the show a surreal, almost dream-logic continuity, perfect for a world where time, magic, and family life blurred. It also hinted at how Bewitched itself struggled to balance fantasy with the realities of television production. magic, marriage, and the changing face of the 1960s woman. Behind its pastel kitchens and cheerful jingles, Bewitched carried quiet rebellion. Samantha Stephens wasn't just a witch hiding her powers. She was a symbol of women's autonomy in an era that demanded domestic submission. When the show premiered in 1964, American women were being told to find happiness at home. Yet Samantha could rearrange the universe with a smile. Her husband Darrin constantly forbade her from using magic, a recurring metaphor for society's attempt to restrain female potential. Every time she twitched her nose, she defied that control. Writers cleverly cloaked social commentary and humor. Episodes featured Samantha solving problems Darrin couldn't, rescuing his career, or standing up to her mother Endora's matriarchal dominance. This interplay reflected the era's real cultural tug-of-war between post-war conformity. As the seasons progressed, she moved from conservative house dresses to sleek miniskirts and bold prints, reflecting the real-world transformation of women's fashion in the late 1960s. Critics later revisited Bewitched as one of television's earliest feminist metaphors, disguised as comedy, the idea that a woman's magic was simply her untapped independence. Elizabeth Montgomery herself became an advocate for women's rights, aligning art with life. In the end, Bewitched wasn't just about spells, it was about self-belief. Beneath the laugh track, Samantha was quietly rewriting the definition of what a woman, witch or not, could be. The unreleased Bewitched ending that never saw the light. When Bewitched quietly ended in 1972, it left millions of fans feeling like a spell had been broken mid-cast. Unknown to most viewers, the writers had planned a proper series finale, one that would have shown Samantha finally choosing to give up her powers to live a normal life with Darrin. Early drafts of the unproduced episode, according to ABC archives and interviews with production staff, depicted a reflective Samantha struggling between love and identity. But low ratings and scheduling shifts forced the network to cancel the show abruptly, leaving the finale script unfinished. Even stranger, internal memos later revealed that the studio considered filming a wrap-up scene in which Tabitha, their daughter, would demonstrate her own magical powers, effectively setting up a spin-off. That spin-off, Tabitha, eventually aired in 1977, but was widely regarded as disconnected from the original show's spirit. The mysterious unshot ending remains one of television's most famous what-ifs. Some entertainment historians suggest its non-existence adds to Bewitched's mystique. After all, a show about secrets and spells ended with one final secret untold. The lost finale script has never surfaced publicly, but its rumored content continues to circulate among collectors and fans, a final enchantment that forever lingers in speculation. The show that defiantly mocked its own sponsors. In the 1960s, sponsors held nearly absolute control over TV programming, dictating dialogue, set design, and even which products could appear on camera. But the Bewitched production team, known for their subtle wit, occasionally turned that control into satire. The show was officially sponsored by Quaker Oats, yet multiple episodes featured the Stephens pantry stocked with rival brands like Kellogg's or Post cereals. This was no accident. It was a cheeky act of defiance by the set designers and writers who felt constrained by corporate oversight. Crew members later admitted in interviews that they intentionally inserted competing brands as Easter eggs, mocking the sponsor's heavy-handedness. In one infamous case, the sponsor reportedly demanded the replacement of a visible cereal box mid-shoot. Rather than reshoot the entire scene, the crew slyly switched the box between takes, creating an absurd continuity error that fans still laugh about today. This rebellious streak made Bewitched quietly subversive. It wasn't just a show about magic, it was also about small rebellions in the face of authority. That spirit of independence echoed through Hollywood's changing landscape in the late 1960s, when creatives began pushing back against network censorship and corporate mandates. Even in suburbia, Bewitched proved it could cast a spell of rebellion. The missing Darrin episode that never aired again. Among Bewitched's 254 episodes, one has developed near-mythical status among fans, A Vision of Sugar Plums. Originally airing in December 1966, it was a heartfelt Christmas story featuring Dick York as Darrin. However, after York's departure and replacement by Dick Sargent, syndicators tried to splice together new scenes to update the holiday rerun, resulting in one of the most bizarre editing experiments in television history. The result was an episode that looked disjointed. Some scenes showed York, others Sargent, and even the lighting shifted noticeably between shots. The awkwardly re-edited version aired only a few times before ABC quietly removed it from circulation, embarrassed by the continuity chaos. Historians later confirmed that the original episode, featuring York's full performance, was archived but never rebroadcast in its entirety after 1970. Collectors claim that the uncut version has resurfaced in limited private screenings, fueling fascination among fans who view it as the ghost episode of Bewitched. It stands as a strange artifact of the era, proof of how studios once struggled to manage actor replacements in the pre-digital age. Even in reruns, Bewitched found a way to stay weirdly magical, with an episode that literally changed faces halfway through. The secret mission of the Bewitched set, recycling Hollywood. The Stephens house, with its white picket fence and cozy charm, has become an icon of American television. But few realize that this familiar home wasn't exclusive to Bewitched. It was actually part of Columbia. Picture's Blondie Street backlot, an entire neighborhood used repeatedly across different shows. The same structure appeared in Gidget, The Donna Reed Show, I Dream of Jeannie, and even The Partridge Family. Rather than build new sets for each production, the studio cleverly repurposed the same exteriors, repainting doors, replacing fences, and rearranging trees to create the illusion of unique homes. In some episodes, eagle-eyed viewers have spotted identical shrubs or garden props appearing across unrelated shows filmed years apart. Interior sets were also recycled. Furniture, curtains, and even kitchen fixtures were shared across multiple series, sometimes within the same filming week. This strategy was both economical and oddly poetic. A single street became the beating heart of mid-century American television. Today, Blondie Street still exists on the Warner Brothers Ranch in Burbank, where nostalgic fans can walk the same paths that Samantha and Darrin once did, alongside the ghosts of countless other sitcom families. The haunted fate of the Bewitched theme song. Every fan recognizes Bewitched's whimsical opening theme, playful, jazzy, and instantly timeless. But few know that the song originally had lyrics. Composers Jack Keller and Howard Greenfield wrote a version sung by Steve Lawrence, a crooner famous in the early 1960s. ABC executives, however, decided the lyrics were too distracting for the animated opening, choosing instead to use the instrumental version that audiences know today. The lyrical recording was shelved, surviving only on rare studio reels. When the lost track resurfaced decades later, it became the stuff of fan folklore. Some collectors dubbed it the cursed theme, after a handful of radio DJs who aired it publicly reportedly experienced unexplained audio malfunctions shortly afterward. While purely superstition, the story gave the Bewitched melody a strange new mystique, its charm now tinged with rumor. The original recording eventually leaked online, revealing surprisingly sweet lyrics about love and magic. For many fans, hearing it for the first time feels like uncovering a hidden verse in a familiar spell, proof that even the most cheerful tunes can have shadows hiding between the notes. The hidden connection between Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. Fans have long debated whether Bewitched inspired I Dream of Jeannie, and the truth is more intertwined than most realize. NBC launched Jeannie in 1965, just 1 year after Bewitched debuted, hoping to capture the same magical domestic formula that ABC had perfected. What's less known is that several Bewitched crew members, including writers, set decorators, and even the sound effects team, quietly jumped ship to work on Jeannie. Both shows shared similar production sets, comedic timing, and even certain camera techniques. Jeannie's bottle and Samantha's twitch were different expressions of the same idea. Supernatural women trying to live normal lives. But behind the scenes, tensions brewed. Elizabeth Montgomery was reportedly irritated by constant comparisons, while producers at Screen Gems viewed Jeannie as an unauthorized copycat. Despite rivalry, the two series later shared crossover crew for syndication, linking them forever in TV lore. Decades later, historians call Jeannie a magical sister to Bewitched, born from envy but bonded by pop culture. The cursed role that doomed its leading men. Playing Darrin Stephens came with unexpected misfortune. Both actors who portrayed Samantha's husband, Dick York and Dick Sargent, experienced career and health struggles linked, by some fans, to the role's supposed curse. York's severe back injury on a previous film left him addicted to painkillers. forcing his mid-season exit. Sargent, who replaced him, later faced industry backlash for coming out as gay in a less accepting era. Their eerily mirrored hardships led tabloids to label the Darrin role jinxed. Even Elizabeth Montgomery reportedly joked that Darrin might be the show's real victim of witchcraft. Whether coincidence or superstition, both actors became tragic figures of Hollywood's pressures, proving that not all magic behind the screen was harmless. The witch who inspired the CIA. In an unexpected twist, Bewitched caught the attention of the US government. During the Cold War, CIA behavioral analysts reportedly studied the show's depiction of mind control and supernatural deception as pop cultural reflections of public anxiety. A 1968 internal memo, later declassified, mentioned Bewitched as a narrative case study in concealed power, essentially examining how invisible influence could shape perception. While no evidence suggests the agency believed in witchcraft, the memo revealed how deeply TV affected political psychology. The show's portrayal of secret abilities hidden within suburban normalcy mirrored real fears of infiltration and surveillance. For a lighthearted sitcom, Bewitched became a mirror of America's Cold War paranoia, its broomstick hovering between magic and metaphor. The secret politics of Samantha's magic. Many viewers saw Bewitched as innocent comedy, but its creator, Saul Sachs, admitted it was layered with social commentary. Samantha's struggle to fit in with mortals reflected women's fight for autonomy during the 1960s feminist wave. Critics later recognized her magic as a symbol of female empowerment, constantly suppressed by Darrin's insistence on normalcy. Elizabeth Montgomery, a known advocate for women's rights, subtly amplified this theme through her performance, often softening lines that depicted Samantha as submissive. Decades later, feminist scholars hailed Bewitched as an early feminist satire disguised as family TV. Beneath the giggles and spells, it was quietly asking, why must a woman hide her power to be loved? The final spell, Bewitched's enduring legacy. Though it ended over 50 years ago, Bewitched continues to influence everything from advertising to modern fantasy shows. Its DNA can be found in Sabrina the Teenage Witch, WandaVision, and even Harry Potter's domestic magical tone. Each borrowed something from Samantha's world, the blend of charm, secrecy, and suburban fantasy. The show also pioneered special effects for live television, inspiring countless sitcoms that mix fantasy and realism. More profoundly, it challenged mid-century gender roles and redefined what magic meant on screen, not just supernatural power, but personal agency. Bewitched remains a cultural spell, still working half a century later, proof that some magic never fades. For a sitcom about a suburban witch, Bewitched did something extraordinary. It bewitched the world. Behind its pastel sets and cheerful laugh track lay stories of hidden struggles, quiet rebellions, and cultural revolutions disguised as magic tricks. It challenged censorship, flirted with politics, and turned domestic life into a mirror of modern identity. From unfilmed endings to haunted songs, every detail of Bewitched carries an echo of television's growing pains and creative courage. Samantha Stephens may have twitched her nose to fix the world around her, but the show itself reshaped pop culture through charm, controversy, and quiet power. Half a century later, its magic hasn't dimmed. It lingers in every fantasy series, every sitcom about impossible women balancing love and freedom. Bewitched wasn't just a show, it was a spell America never truly woke up from.